Hello again, it's Brittany and welcome to Under the Radar Books, and today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up. I thought about doing a November TBR, but I'm not really big on TBRs. I just kind of like to read whatever I'm in the mood for. I do have a read-along I'm doing and a buddy read, so I'll talk about those at the end of the wrap-up. So anyways, I read 6 books in October, and I also am halfway through 2 other ones, so I'll talk about those as well. The first book that I finished in October was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and this was definitely a reread. I think this will be the 3rd time that I've read this. But the last time I read it, I think I was in high school, and I enjoyed it so much more this time. I don't know if it was because I just am older and I just enjoyed the writing more, and nuances and things like that. I'm not sure, but it was a really good experience, and I'm so glad that I decided to reread it. And it's so short too, so it's just so nice to get into, and I just read this in a couple sittings, so definitely recommended. Next, I finished the Bookshop book by Jen Campbell, and I will link her channel down below. She's amazing. She's an awesome booktuber, an amazing person in general, and she's just wonderful, so please check her out. This book is about bookshops and how magical they are and wonderful they are, and the people that work there and the people who love them and the customers and authors and the whole world of bookshops, and it's amazing. I love this so much. I can't even explain how much I love this. And I think this is such a good book for fellow book lovers, especially for the holidays coming up. But yeah, it's so great, and the format is awesome because separated by continent, and then the different bookshops are within it, and then also included is little bookish facts, also interviews with authors and customers, and it's just so cool. And there's also colored photos, which are beautiful, and I love that. So if you have not read this one, I would highly recommend that you go buy this, and I will for sure be rereading this and just visiting it, you know, especially when I travel. I can look up bookstores to go to, and that is so fun. So thank you, Jen, for creating this. Next up, I finished Antarctica by Keegan, and I also heard about this on Jen's channel. And it's a short story collection. It's very dark, and some of the stories were really great, and some of them kind of like were not very memorable for me. And it wasn't that they weren't good. I mean, they were all really good stories. It was just some kind of fell flat, whereas other ones really rose up out of the pages and gripped me, and I can still remember them. So I think I gave this 3.5 stars, because not all of them were super memorable, but there definitely were a couple that were 5-star reads. And I would definitely recommend this to someone who's looking to start reading short stories, and I think that if you like dark fiction and kind of gritty stuff, I think you'd really enjoy this. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. Then I read The Chrysalids by John Wydham, and I've been wanting to read John Wydham for ages, and his books are really hard to get for some reason. I cannot find them for the life of me, and I love these editions. I know these are the UK ones, and so obviously I just ordered them. I have been wanting to read him for so long, and I finally got one and started it, and I loved it. This is one of my favorite reads, probably of this year. And David is the main character, and it starts out with a bang, and the first chapter really drags you in, and there was some sort of disaster, and from what it sounds like, you're thinking it's something like nuclear, because people are developing deformities, and this town where David lives, they're obsessed with getting rid of those deformities, and if you have a deformity, you get cast out, basically. And so they seem very religious and yeah, almost like a cult. And so in the first chapter, he's playing down by the river, and he happens to meet another girl, and they start playing together, and they're sliding down the riverbank in the mud, and her foot gets caught in the mud, and her shoe, when she's trying to pull her foot out, gets caught. And so she pulls her foot out, and he realizes that she has 6 toes. And so he's realizing that she has a deformity, what that means, and he's starting to realize that maybe what he's been taught isn't necessarily true, and that these deformities are human. And I think it just really explores a lot of really interesting things, and talks about what it means to be human and the effect that humans have on other creatures and on the world and on each other. And I think it's just a really important book, and I think that's why a lot of schools read this. And anyways, this has just really stuck with me and I enjoyed it so much. I definitely would reread it. And if you haven't read Wydham, I think this is a good place to start. And I can't wait to read the rest of the stuff. I'm just gonna go buy everything that he's written. And I'm so excited. So definitely give this one a try. And next up, I read Kissing the Witch by Emma Donoghue. And this is a short story collection that is basically retellings of fairy tales. And it's cool because they're actually interconnected in a way that each one segues into the next one. The characters are like talking to each other almost. And it definitely takes like things you know really well, like Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella, and reforms them and retells them in a new way. And there's a lot of sexual orientation that is explored within these. And also, I'd say definitely this is a good LGBTQ short story collection. I wasn't wowed by it. I think I had really high expectations because I love fairy tales and I love fairy tale retellings, and I just think that I had way too high hopes for this and it just kind of let me down. I was 0 to 5 stars, and yeah, I feel like not very many of them have stuck with me. I mean, there's maybe 1 or 2 that are just kind of there, but yeah, nothing really wowed me in this one. So, and the last book that I read was We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, and I love this book also. I had a pretty good month as far as books that I enjoyed, and Shirley Jackson has a really fond place in my heart because I read Haunting of Hill House when I was probably 15. I think it was probably one of the first like really literary kind of books that I read. I remember it being kind of challenging read for me at the time because I think mostly I'd been reading middle grade and YA books at the time, and so when I found that, I just enjoyed it so much. I remember being so proud of myself when I finished it. And so I've read The Haunting of Hill House a couple times, and this is the first time I've read this, and I really enjoyed it just as much. And I love her books because they just have this underlying like eeriness about them, and it's not like in your face horror, but it's just like this creepy, like unsettling feeling the entire time you're reading. And if you don't know what this is about, it's about an 18-year-old girl named Meerkat, and she lives with her sister and her uncle in this huge crumbling mansion. And you find out that her family was poisoned at their dinner table. And slowly you start to learn how that came to be and why. And she's great because she's an unreliable narrator. The whole time you don't really know if she's quite sane, and so you're really questioning, like, is this stuff happening? You know, you're not quite let in on all of the pieces of the story until the end. And I think that that is so great because just like slowly you're starting to learn new things, and that just is so entertaining, makes you want to read so much more. And I love this. I mean, it was perfect for Halloween, so highly recommended. I gave this one 5 stars. And then the 2 books that I'm in the middle of right now are The Polysyllabic Spree by Nick Hornby. And this is a nonfiction book. And it's really little stories that Nick Hornby wrote for a magazine called The Believer. And it's talks about the books that he bought and read each month. And then he kind of does like a couple page blurb of why he read the book, or did he like it, or just musings about being a writer and a human. And it's really interesting. And this is where I don't know if you can tell, I'm 83 pages into it. And this is kind of how the little parts are formatted. So yeah, and it's really interesting. I'm enjoying it. Great sense of humor, and there's a lot of parts that I have laughed out loud at, especially at the beginning. The introduction was hilarious. Yeah, but I'm not racing through it, so I just am reading maybe like a chapter or 2 a day. So I'm just kind of taking my time with it, and I am enjoying it. And I definitely think this is a great book for bibliophiles. I think it's also a good gift. So I would recommend this. I'm not blown away at this point, but I'm definitely going to finish it. So, and the other book that I'm currently in the middle of, I don't have with me right now, but it is You by Caroline Kepnes, and it is a thriller, and it's about a young man who works in a bookstore, and a young lady walks in, and he basically falls in love with her on the spot. And he is the narrator, and as you're going along, you start to realize that he's becoming obsessed with her, and he's stalking her. And some very creepy and disturbing things happen, but he's very unreliable as a narrator, which obviously I really like. And the whole thing is just very creepy and disturbing, chilling. If you don't like uncomfortable things, graphic things. I don't know if I would read this one. Difficult to describe this book. Part of me is like loving it and I just want to get through it so quickly because the story is so compelling. And the other side of me is like super creeped out and disturbed and I like don't want to read it. So it's like you're like torn. It's just like the oddest feeling when it comes to this book. But I think I have maybe 100 pages left. So I'm really interested to see where it's going to go. I have no idea what's going to happen at this point. So I'm definitely excited to finish that one and I should be finishing it within the next couple of days. Post a review on that. I'll wrap up when I'm finished. And so that is what I read in October. As far as November goes for a TBR, like I said, I don't really do TBRs. Maybe that will change in the future. At this point, I just kind of am picking whatever I feel like. I am doing a buddy read with Scribbles Reads, and we're going to be reading Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. And I've wanted to read this for a while. I haven't been reading a lot of YA, and I think it'll be a fun change of pace for me, especially to be able to discuss it with someone else. So I'm really excited about that. That will be one I will be getting to in November. And second, I will be joining Oleander Read Along, and it is organized by Jenny at Adultish Books, and I will link her channel down below also. And that is one I've been wanting to read forever. I actually tried to pick it up when I was maybe 12 or 13 and it just was over my head, and so I ended up putting it down. But I'm really excited to pick it up again. I know there's quite a few people participating. I'm really excited to discuss with all of you wonderful people. So thank you so much for watching and for subscribing and liking my channel. And it is so welcoming and so awesome to be a part of this community. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And happy reading.